So long as he's in the saddle of his bike, Greg Anderson can call almost anywhere home. While it's usually the headquarters for harness track racing, the Newcastle Paceway will host his farewell event in December before he takes up a 2-year contract to race the lucrative US circuit.
It won't do any damage. We've had a good study into that, so we're looking forward to it, and I think the crowds will come out in their droves to see the motocross back in Newcastle.
The harness track itself is busily being prepared for the club's busiest time of the year before the site goes motocross.
We've got graders, water trucks, rollers. We've just top dressed the track. It'll be out of action this week while we're getting it ready, and our first test will be back here on Melbourne Cup Day.
Then it's the $50,000 Newcastle Mile and the Newcastle Cup that takes centre stage, with racing almost every Saturday night until Christmas. For Anderson, though, it's time for testing his new machine in America before his first hit out with his new team in Paris. The next time he returns to Newcastle, it'll be to get married and leave his hometown fans with sights like these before his debut season in the US. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
A volley of shots were blasted into the bedroom window of a Barton Avenue Singleton house at about 4 this morning. Luckily, the occupants escaped the incident unharmed. It's the second time in just 6 weeks homes have been fired upon in the street. Police are now trying to find a car seen leaving Barton Avenue at high speed after this morning's incident.
The giant Jackson figs in Layman Street are regarded as one of the city's most beautiful features. But according to council, one of them that hangs over the Civic Park fountain must be removed.
Oh, the biggest fear is that it will tumble down. And we're particularly concerned if we get any large amount of rainfall, the canopy itself will get very, very heavy.
The condition of this one has cast doubt over others in the street, with locals reacting strongly to the prospect of losing several of the trees.
I just love the trees and vegetation, and everything in my heart leans towards saving those things. They are the worthwhile things.
Newcastle is known to be the green city, and I'm quite sure if they lose their trees, they'll lose their identity.
Council admits it's sensitive about the trees because of public liability worries and says if they're deemed unsafe, they'll get the chop.
This one certainly has shown up immediately as a problem, and then we'll prioritise the others and do a detailed risk assessment according to the analysis.
On most days, this is where you'll find Irene Belford alongside her trusty Singer sewing machine making clowns for deserving children.
I just saw the pattern in a paper once and it appealed to me. So I started making them.
Irene's mother died when she was just 1, and as a child she had no toys at all. But that hasn't stopped her from helping other children. 78 clowns in this room will be donated to the Salvation Army just in time for Christmas. Irene says she's been inspired to the role after she helped one sick boy in hospital.
There was a little boy there, he never had any feelings, the nurses said, and he put his little hand out and patted the clown. And I thought, here I go again. I haven't stopped since.
It takes at least 4 hours for Irene to make one clown, and she says every creation is unique. Over the last 30 years, thousands of clowns have been created in this home, and Irene has no trouble in coming up with new ideas and certainly shows no signs of retiring. But she may just need to make some more room in her house to continue her passion of clowning around. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
The olive industry in the Hunter is still in its infancy, but as the 220,000 trees reach maturity and bear more fruit, producers are faced with a dilemma. How can they reduce the cost of production and compete with cheaper foreign imports of oil in supermarkets?
Every dollar we can save at the cost end is $3 at the retail. So, as you can see, doing it as quickly as possible will get those retail prices down.
It's enlisted the help of the Hunter Area Consultative Committee and others with expertise in similar industries. It's taken the local wine industry 2 decades to reach a strong level of international competitiveness, and it acts as an example to olive growers.
The Hunter Valley itself, when you look at the region itself, it has all the skills and expertise to be able to fast-track these things.
Despite the promising signs for the industry, Chris Robinson says it will get tougher before it gets better.
But it will be an industry that is a roller coaster, and I think everyone in the industry at the moment, we've been clicking up to the top of the rise. We're not quite sure yet how far their first drop is, or whether it's going to go left or right, or what it is.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
Today was just textbook. It could not, if you looked up demolition, controlled demolition drop, you'd get a picture of this here today. It was just perfect.
If only playing the state's best resort golf course was as simple as the forecast, hot and dry. On a day many would have preferred to have been at the beach, Scott Henn still showed how to have fun when landing in the sand. Robert Payne would hardly have agreed. But the amateur showed he was a quick learner with a great recovery. More familiar with the Horizons layout, fellow amateur James Nitties was homeward bound, the better for 3 strokes. He could have finished 5 under though, had this dropped first go on the last. Starting the day 4 under, Craig Carmichael finished his second round level with overnight leader Terry Price at 6 under, while playing partner Marcus Kane did 1 better. The man in question teed off this afternoon hoping the predicted winds didn't blow in. His score was steady, a 1 under today has him still well placed, 1 off the pace. Shane Tate backed up a first round 69 with a 68 to join Price at 7 under. After landing a well-documented ace to win $500,000 early last year, Nathan Green's putter was almost as lethal on the par 3 6th. But it was Jason Norris's 3 under par round that has him as overall leader as the field is halved tonight. It's rough, tough and no place for the faint-hearted. Wheelchair rugby, the most popular game at the Sydney Paralympics, has also become a favourite among able-bodied footballers. Billy Peden looks a natural and will lead the Knights team in Saturday's Charity Day, while Mark Hughes' return from a knee reconstruction means he's gone from player to coach.
Well, Billy cemented his place today by being here. Daniel Abraham, Ben Kennedy and even Mick Hagan's vying positions. He's skating on thin ice, so I'll have to have a good talk to him. I'll bring him into the office and have a one-on-one meeting and we'll see what happens.
While the Knights lineup is still being finalised, former leaguey Nathan Blacklock will spearhead the Waratahs team, a side that needs improvement.
We're out for a pride and we're going to make sure that particularly the Waratahs, they played very poorly last time, Jim, and we would like to keep them there, down on the bottom, yes.
The state wheelchair team has several Newcastle-based players in their side and will spare few in their quest to show off their wares on Saturday.
There is some big smacks out there, big hits. Quite often, like you said, Jim, they do fall out. We put them back in again. That's nice of us, but yeah, it's good stuff.
Merewether Carlton Rugby round out the 4 teams that will play at Broadmeadow Basketball Stadium on Saturday afternoon. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
A refusal to pull over for police could well have cost the young man his life.
Certainly it's a tragic thing when anyone is killed and, once again there appears no good reason for it.
It's understood 24-year-old Troy Noland was first witnessed by police speeding along Freeman's Drive at Cooranbong just before 11 o'clock last night.
They pursued that vehicle. The pursuit lasted about 1 minute and reached speeds of 130 kilometres an hour.
The chase ended terribly at Newport Road at Dora Creek.
The vehicle allegedly turned its lights out and a moment later ran off the road and collided with a power pole.
The driver of the green Nissan Pulsar was killed instantly.
Because it was a police pursuit, the incident is being treated as a death in custody.
And that means a special internal police inquiry. A senior officer from the Tuggerah Local Area Police Command will oversee the investigation. The driver of the police car, a senior constable, and a newly recruited probationary constable have undergone counselling. A report is now being prepared for the state coroner. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News. Police rushed to where the gunman was last seen leaving the Warners Bay branch of the Newcastle Permanent just after 11 this morning.
The male offender has produced a long-barrelled firearm that's wrapped in a green-coloured canvas. He's produced that firearm at the tellers and demanded money. A substantial amount of money was given to the offender.
Customers told police the bandit then fled. A large-scale search of nearby streets ensued. A stolen getaway car was found dumped in Albert Street. The bandit was wearing a balaclava and is described as being aged in his early 20s and of large build. Meantime, police have released a comfort image of a robber who locked a Belmont woman out of her home while he ransacked it on Monday. Police also want help to identify a serial flasher who's been exposing himself to young women at rail platforms at Adamstown and Katara. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
The much-anticipated Tooheys Mile attracted a quality field for the Newcastle Harness Racing Club's biggest night of the year. The late mail had the 10-strong field rated as the best in years, drawing Queensland champion Left Right Out, local stallion, the Les Cosklin-trained Ocean Spirit, and current Australian Horse of the Year Smooth Satin. But the standout performance came from Double Identity. Boxed out of the start, the Bathurst Bullet rejoined the field, almost taking the race in the process. Jophus paying $11.40 and $1.80 ahead of Double Identity at $1.50 and Left Right Out $2.60. The Quinella paid $15.40, the Trifecta $325.30. Stephen Mount, NBN News. Out for a hat-trick, Caves Beach travelled to Stockton hoping to continue its dominance of the series, but the only crew from the club to walk away with the placing would be the under-21s. In the final heat, Nobbies managed to edge out Redhead and Caves Beach to lead into the finals, reading the half-metre surf to perfection. Nobbies went on to win the day's round ahead of Pacific Palms and McMasters. In the reserves, Nobbies again proved too strong, crossing the line before Cooks Hill and Terrigal, while Avoca had the best run home in the ladies to finish in front of Swansea and Redhead. The next round of the series is at Soldiers Beach on the 8th of December.
Teleconferencing isn't a new idea, but in the past 12 months it's been creating a huge difference for patients in northern New South Wales, especially kids with cancer. For Dr Frank Alvaro, the region's only paediatric oncologist, the technology enables him and his team to learn and discuss the latest in medical therapy. The electronic conferencing makes it as easy to talk to a colleague in Brisbane as though they were in the same room.
It's always good to sound off difficult cases with various people to have their opinions, and usually they're what you've thought of, but it's still, I guess, from a professional point of view, very important.
The Telehealth Research Centre at John Hunter Hospital is also making life a little easier in regional healthcare. Young patients often spend considerable amounts of time away from their homes with one parent. The technology then allows for the other to stay behind and work, but always be part of the doctor's consultations.
We can, if required, have a video link up with the regional centre to have similar discussions with both parents, because that's actually quite important to talk to both parents together. So that can happen if we need to.
Colin Robinson, NBN News.
Many probably find it hard to believe this scene of natural beauty was once a garbage dump and sports field. The rehabilitated Shortland wetlands is now a world-class sanctuary for native and migratory birdlife and home to unique types of wetlands, attributes which have been recognised by the International Ramsar Wetlands Convention.
We are so excited. We leapt around when we got the news. The volunteers are excited, the staff are excited because it's a community-owned and managed wetland.
Shortland gets its listing after the Ramsar organisation decided to enlarge the already listed Kooragang Nature Reserve. As a result of the Wetland Centre's Ramsar recognition, the Lower Hunters wetland areas will now be known as the Hunter Estuary Wetlands. It connects the Wetland Centre with the Kooragang Nature Reserve and the Hexham Wildlife Corridor. The international recognition will ensure the wetlands can be enjoyed by future generations.
It means that the wetlands themselves, the land, is going to be protected forever, in perpetuity, no matter what happens, and that land use surrounding the area will have to comply with certain standards.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
The taller David Mansour looked to have the advantage from the start of the men's individual foil final, but it was Australia's Frank Bartolillo who drew the first hit. Then, when the Welshman seemed to be gaining momentum, Bartolillo turned defence into attack and scored again. It soon became evident the Aussie's speed was superior and his lead increased. Again and again. So frustrated was the Welshman, he even let his coach, rival competitor and crowd know all about it. His confidence building with every hit, the little Australian put on a display that would make a musketeer proud. A change of mask late in the contest wasn't going to break Bartolillo's momentum. With his cheer squad offering encouragement and victory in sight, the Aussie focused on sealing the win. And with a flick of his foil, Bartolillo broke a 44-year drought in the division for Australia. After being lauded as a hero, celebrations for the country's latest Commonwealth champion took on a more emotional front for family and friends. And today, with a gold medal around his neck, the 21-year-old was struggling to hide his happiness.
I can't believe it. I thought it was like it's all in a dream, but the dream come true.
Colin Robinson, NBN News.
Those four people, and there were other people, those four people were the people that started putting the ideas, the disparate ideas together, and they sort of made my job happen.
Bob Gulliver is passionate about local government. In fact, he's spent 38 years working in it, and although he's now retired from Maitland City Council, he continues to monitor things closely.
My object is to have the whole thing straightened out, whether they complain about me in Parliament or wherever. I'm only too happy to lay my cards on the table.
Mr Gulliver lodged 70% of Maitland's 47 complaints to earn the council third place on the state's most complained about list. Gosford also made the top 10. While Maitland's mayor admits Mr Gulliver has been right on certain issues, he says council is fed up with the complaints and has restricted the pensioners' access to the council.
He is permitted to have half an hour per month with the public officer. All his questions are to be in writing, and of course we determine whether in fact we respond to that.
A public inquiry found that Mr Gulliver's active campaigning costs Maitland City Council around $27,000 each year. Not surprisingly, it's a figure the former town clerk also disputes. Council's not the only body on Mr Gulliver's list. And although he's in his 70s and has just had a triple bypass, Mr Gulliver says he'll continue to act as a public watchdog.
I get the impression with a bit of luck it might give me another lease of life.
Lyndall Derrig, NBN News.
Australia's latest fencing champion was back at the scene of her victory today, showing off the spoils of competition. Evelyn Halls is no stranger to Commonwealth success, having won the individual women's épée division 4 years ago at the last championships in 1998. She says she was inspired this time around by compatriot Frank Bartolillo's win the night before.
When I got some success overseas a few years ago, he sort of said to me, you know, you're my hero and I'd like to be like you. So then when he won the title, I thought, oh, there's a bit of pressure on me now to live up to his expectations of me. So yeah, it was great for him, and it was also a great relief for me that, you know, we could be champions together.
But her championships are far from over. Evelyn's part of the épée teams event, which may see her face the might of England, which also boasts some serious star power. Joe Maynard was the body double and fencing coach for new Bond girl Rosamond Pike, seen here meeting the Queen at the recent premiere of Die Another Day. The film sees Pike play Olympic fencer Miranda Frost.
She was good, she picked it up really quickly.
Perhaps a little surprisingly though, meeting the likes of Pierce Brosnan, Halle Berry and Madonna wasn't the highlight of Maynard's dabble with the silver screen.
I was probably most impressed with Bob Anderson. He was the fight choreographer and he was just amazing. So he's not really famous as in Hollywood famous, but he was pretty amazing to work with.
The women's team épée final is on tomorrow night, and it could secure Australia the overall champions trophy for the first time. Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
It's the latest in a string of setbacks for NSL clubs after yesterday's decision by the Perth Glory to axe its youth team. Newcastle United says it shares the Parramatta club's frustration with the state of the game in Australia, but it's confident this season won't be the end of the Power.
I would expect that they'll complete their 5-year term, but hopefully for next year's competition being a reform one, that they may further commit, and we hope that he reconsiders.
Meanwhile, Newcastle's not about to write off Brisbane either, ahead of their NSL encounter this Friday night. While the Strikers are sitting at the bottom of the table, coach Ian Crook says if anything, their position is misleading.
You know, they're not going to come here and lay down. They'll give it 100%.
Round 11 additions to the team include Scott Thomas and Adam Griffiths. The final lineup is expected to be clearer on Friday. But one thing that's certain is that the wider choice provides a healthy challenge among the players.
A lot of the squad's now coming together as being fully fit, so there's a lot of competition, which is good because it keeps everyone on their toes.
Lyndall Derrig, NBN News. Come January, the pool at the Forum will again be filled with some top swimmers from overseas. A contingent from Amsterdam inspected the facilities today. They're planning to return with around half of Holland's national team and hopefully one of the most talented ladies in the water, Inge de Bruin.
I coached Inge when she was from 13 to 16, and already then she was a bullet. I mean, very, very quick.
Inge and fellow Dutchman Peter van den Hoogenband last trained in Newcastle 2 years ago, just before the Olympics. This time the Hunter Business Chamber is behind the push to get the Dutch to return, and our summer weather is not the only draw card.
I am very impressed with the pool, with the help we get from all the people, especially all the side things where we can train, do the workout on the side. I mean, the strength training, the aerobic training, the running, the swimming, it's all very, very good.
Currently, the Dutch swim team is ranked third in the world behind Australia and the United States.
We are a pretty small country with pretty good swimmers, so we are trying to develop and we are developing our talents towards the top.
The Dutch swimmers are considering competing in the New South Wales Championships as part of the visit. Lyndall Derrig, NBN News.
Across on the right-hand side of the field, but he's met by a wall of red and blue jumpers. Woolno was there, so getting in to make the tackle with Perry.
It was like a mini tornado that just came through in one particular part. It was amazing. Yes, it was scary.
Lucas Morgan, or Luke as he's better known, was playing with a friend at the pool at the Salamander Shores Hotel yesterday afternoon, not far from his house. It's believed he climbed the pool fence to retrieve a lost ball when tragedy struck.
On attempting to climb back into the fenced-off area inside the pool, we believe that he may have received an electrical shock somehow. Now that's where our inquiries are centring on at this stage.
Hotel guests and staff carried out CPR in an effort to revive the boy. He was, however, pronounced dead on arrival at Nelson Bay Polyclinic.
My staff and myself are pretty upset at the moment because we have kids and a couple of my staff were directly involved. So until we get a full report, we really can't put any light on it, and we just send our condolences out to the family.
A post-mortem will be carried out to try and discover the exact cause of death and a report prepared for the coroner.
We're having the place thoroughly examined by work cover authorities, the local electricity authorities as well.
School friends of the Year 7 student received counselling today. Luke's funeral will be held at 2:30 on Thursday at the Uniting Church in Salamander. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News. It's the first major industrial action at a Hunter coal mine since the long-running Rio Tinto dispute. The 24-hour strike affects the Bulga open cut mine and other mines also owned by Xstrata Coal. It comes after 81 workers were retrenched 7 weeks ago, the last finishing work on Friday.
You've got 81 guys here now that have had to go home and tell their families that there's no real bright future for them in the coal mining industry, and they've now lost them jobs again right on Christmas.
But the mine's management claims the national stoppage is illegal and says it's disappointed the union has taken industrial action.
And basically, Bulga's doing this to ensure long-term viability for the 197 people that are still going to work here. And we're disappointed that the union are taking this action today, and we're open to discuss any concerns they've got.
It also says today's strike has cost Australia thousands of dollars in production.
Since in a day like this, we'd be looking to wash about 40,000 tonne of coal. That's coal that our customers won't be getting, and we won't be putting on ships to go overseas and get revenue for the country and for the company.
The case was heard before the Industrial Relations Commission, which was still sitting late this afternoon. Regardless of the outcome, the union says it will continue its campaign.
We're pretty case hardened in these sorts of disputes, and if they want to fight, we'll give them one.
Lyndall Derrig, NBN News.
Novocastrians love a good show. Whether they're putting one on or sitting back and watching, it seems we can't get enough music in our veins. The Conservatorium will be humming with rhythm when the Australian Guitar Competition and Festival strums into action tonight. The festival will showcase a variety of local and international acts, providing performers with the unique opportunity to interact with guitarists from all corners of the globe.
Not only are the concerts wonderful for the general public, but of course you're bringing guitarists together and there's a fantastic exchange of ideas, and it's very inspiring for all of us.
And 9 of Newcastle's finest ballet dancers will also be mingling with the world's finest when they compete in the prestigious Genet International Ballet Competition at the Opera House next week. The dancers are looking forward to twinkling their toes with acclaimed dancers and choreographers.
Meeting the people, but also the coaching from the professional choreographers that we get, which is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, basically.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
The journey from Sydney along the Putty Road and through to the scenic wine country of the Hunter Valley is one of the most popular rides for motorcyclists in the state. But almost 2/3 of all accidents which occur on this stretch involve motorbikes.
They were produced and built for bullocks many years ago, not built for riders, and so yes, they're just unsuitable for fast rides.
Cessnock City Council has become the first council in the state to not only encourage motorcycling but also promote its safety. It's enlisted the support of former Cessnock lad Brock Parks. At just 20 years of age, he's the youngest competitor in the superbikes. He says even the most experienced riders need to know their limits on country roads.
Yeah, well, that's what the aim is, to reduce accidents, and when people have accidents, to make sure that they're geared up right and they have all the protective clothing on.
The campaign also informs riders of hazardous sections of the road and urges all road users to watch out for motorcyclists. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Smoke rose over the valley this afternoon as several fires were fanned by hot, squally winds. More than 1,000 hectares has been burnt out. In this outbreak near Broke, the landscape bore the black scar of a quickly advancing grass fire. A shed on the property was lost. 2 concrete grain silos were also claimed. The grass fire appeared to have started here under a power line. In another outbreak, wind pushed flames towards the Bulga coal mine, forcing the preparation plant to be evacuated along with the administration buildings. A fire has this evening advanced through the Singleton Army Base land and into the Broken Back Range. There was concern for a party of soldiers thought to have been trapped by the advancing front, but they've since been contacted and are safe. Tonight, firefighters are worried about communications equipment atop the Broken Back Range that services the entire Hunter Valley. When you consider the ferocity of the fire that ripped through West Lake Macquarie suburbs, it's amazing to think only one home was destroyed. Despite the success of the firefighting efforts, representatives from emergency and community services met today for an overview of events and what bearing they may have on the fights that are still likely to come. Apart from operational matters, the welfare campaign continues to help get people back on their feet.
For the first 3 or 4 days, it was like you were in some sort of shock, you know, and there was going around to try and get relief money for so we could stock the freezer up, get some food, and insurances, getting people to have quotes and all that sort of thing.
For others, the losses weren't as bad as first thought. Neville Heaton's tyre business didn't escape the blaze. However, reports that his company had gone up in smoke have taken their toll.
I was having a look earlier on this morning, comparing figures this year to last year, and we're down by 2/3, and that's a lot of money.
And he's not alone. During the height of the emergency, nobody gave Toronto's treated Pine Place business, ringed by fire, a chance of survival.
This is our busiest period of the year. We should have cars lined up out the gate at the moment, but it's fairly quiet, as you can see.
These people were the lucky few who managed to snare a seat on a flight to Sydney today. Aero Pelican put on 2 extra flights, the first one selling out in just 10 minutes.
I was quite lucky to get a seat. So.
After hearing the early morning news and flicking through the radio stations, I then decided I have to take in another option of travel.
Some had even tried to drive to Sydney in the early hours of the morning, only to be turned back.
We got as far as Arimba and turned back and tried to get a seat, and we got this one here.
It was a similar scene at Williamtown.
Knowing that all the surface routes were closed into Sydney, we've arranged with Horizon to provide a charter flight.
This Horizon flight took an extra 44 people to Sydney. The rest of the scheduled flights were also booked out. Meanwhile, Newcastle Airport Management has announced Sangreal Holdings as the commercial partner to develop and manage up to $80 million worth of infrastructure at the airport. Included in the development is a 120-room hotel, air freight facilities, office space and aircraft hangars. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
It's looking pretty serious. Actually, with every wind gust, it looks more and more serious. But you can see the flames coming out behind our place now.
By midday in Newcastle, it was hard to imagine less than 24 hours ago we were experiencing temperatures in their mid-30s. And looking over the vineyards, the sky said it all. Good rainfall throughout the Hunter Valley has finally relieved a drawn-out firefighting effort, which began at Abernathy on the 19th of October. 7 weeks later, firefighters have finally had a chance to put their feet up and enjoy some well-deserved time away from the fire front.
Most of those crews now are being stood down, and they'll get back to their sheds and refurbish equipment, refurbish their vehicles and hoses and lines and so on. The volunteers, of course, many of those will actually, their rest is they get to go back to work today.
The National Parks and Wildlife Service says while the rain comes as a blessing for the region's fire situation, it only extinguishes exterior blazes. Once the weather clears, crews will head back out into the field to douse smouldering remains and remove those trees at risk of falling. With the forecast indicating clearing conditions, reinforcement work on containment lines is expected to restart as soon as tomorrow. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
We'll give it our best shot, and we could be doing a bit of extra training that he's not aware of, and it really is how we feel on the day as well.
Earlier this year, Albie Bergen hung up his skipper's hat after 77 years of sailing achievements. But it seems there could be still more memorabilia to add to the loft, and the lure of the sea has returned.
When I retired, I was 86 and now I'm 87. And I said to myself, I've had enough sailing. And I really thought I had enough.
Albie's retirement even coincided with the sale of his beloved yacht Alstar, but when its new owner recently invited him to come aboard and share his ocean racing experience, the offer was too good to refuse.
I said, Albie, he said, I've managed to get 3 weeks off at Christmas. Do you think you can come down and sail with me? I said, have you? I said, oh, gee whiz, I might get into trouble with my wife, but anyhow, I've been getting into trouble for 77 years, so I suppose another year won't hurt.
So the Lake Macquarie legend and his relatively young crew of 3 50-somethings will sail around Tasmania, starting alongside the Melbourne to Hobart fleet on December 27. It's a race Albie won back in 1988 as a leg of the bicentennial Round Australia event. While this time they're only sailing along and not competing, no boat with this skipper will ever be an idle observer.
If we win, it'll be a miracle, I'd say, because they haven't had much experience. But we'll have a lot of fun and we'll be having a bit of a go with the other boats.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.